Hello there, my name is Elliot Wonenyika and I'm a lecturer in the Management Accounting Finance Department at Chartered Accountants Academy. Welcome to the revision of the Test 1 written by the CTA Part 2 and full time for 2019. So the question here is, now that you have written this test and you have obtained whatever mark you scored from this assessment, the question now is, what key lessons did you learn from this assessment before you proceed to the next stages in your academic program? Because the idea is, before we even take the next step, we need to take time to introspect on how we did and then come up with actions to address what we did wrong, and then also to be able to identify what did we do wrong in this first assessment. So for this revision, I'm going to be focusing on required 3 in your test. So the structure I'm going to use for this revision is, I'm going to do a detailed analysis of the required to confirm our understanding and interpretation. Then after doing the detailed analysis, I'm going to come up with a structure which I'm going then to use to answer this required. Then I'm going to go through with you how we expect you to be able to link the information in the scenario to you then generating the appropriate solution points. So let's go through our required. So our required said, describe the key risks associated with expanding into the South African market. So now going back to this required, we have been asked to describe. So obviously you need to ask yourself, what is your understanding of the word describe? So normally when you look at descriptive words, you have to provide enough detail of what you think is happening. But what am I describing exactly? I need to describe key risk. So in whatever I do, I need to be able to identify key risks. So the question here is on key. What therefore constitutes a key risk? So the word key is mainly driven about, if you go back to our enterprise risk management process, we agreed that whenever we are evaluating a risk, for it to be key, you need to assess its magnitude of impact. So if this risk is to occur, what will be the magnitude of the impact? And then you also need to be able to assess its likelihood of occurrence. Then if magnitude is high and impact is high, then the risk is considered to be key. So risk associated with what? With expanding into the South African market. So here we only want that risk which is arising from the fact that we are going to be expanding into the South African market. So in other words, if we don't expand into the South African market, we are not going to experience or be exposed to this particular risk. So a classic example would be, in the case study we were told that there were certain issues that were being experienced with the current Zimbabwean economic landscape. Whether or not we are going to expand to the South African market, those issues were not going to go away. But there are certain things that are going to come into play based on the decision that we have gone into the South African market. Then, South African market, very crucial. So I'm going to type here SA market. What is this telling me? So this is a risk associated with me going into another market. So with that synthesizing, it means I need to be able then to link back to the scenario. So in the scenario, you're given information around the decision of acquiring an investment, which is in the South African market. So if we go to page 4 of our scenario, we get a section which is headed expansion into the South African market. So it means for the purpose of my risk identification, I need to be able to make use of this information and any relevant triggers to be able to identify those risks that are going to arise from us expanding into this SA market. So now, for you to get a structure on how to answer this question, then you need to ask yourself, how am I able, or which model or tool should I use to be able to assess those particular risks? So if you look back at the session that we did on strategy, we had various tools that we can use to do environmental analysis or positional analysis of businesses. So here, since we are dealing with entering into a specific market, or entering this new environment. The model that we expected you to use is the Pestel. We expected you to use the Pestel analysis. So what is Pestel? We are assessing the political landscape. So we are saying, if I look at the South African market, what is the political landscape? And I'm basing this on the information provided. What is the economic landscape? Based on the information provided, are there any risks associated or arising from the economic landscape prevailing in South African market? Socially, what is the landscape? Technological, looking at the South African market, are there any technological issues? Then environmental landscape. Then finally, any legal landscape. So already this question was asking for 16 marks. So it means the moment I then do this Pestel analysis, I now have direction in which I was expected to be able to generate my points. And please note, for the purpose of answering this question, we're not expecting you to give us the theory around Pestel analysis. We wanted you to apply the Pestel tool to be able to identify those risks that were associated with expanding into the South African market. So now that we are clear on how you are supposed to structure, or the thought process you are supposed to have used in coming up with the value solution points, let's now go back to the information you are provided in the case study and see what information you are provided, and then link it back to our risk identification process. So I'm going to go back to our case study, the section where we are given information on expansion into the SA market. So we are told that the directors are currently pursuing an investment in South Africa, specifically focusing on motor vehicle insurance in a bid to continue expanding the business operations. So going to South Africa, what business do you want to do? Motor vehicle insurance. That context is key. We are not just going in to do anything, but specifically we want to do motor vehicle insurance. And we are further told this also comes as a result of wanting to improve the company's foreign currency reserves. The decision to invest in South Africa has not yet been made, and the directors are still carrying out a cost-benefit analysis of this venture. This is now justifying why we are getting this required risk analysis. Then you are told the Group FD circulated the following excerpt of an article prepared by Standard & Poor. So here in this article, we are given more information around the South African market. So outlook, insurance companies that we rate in South Africa should remain profitable in 2019 despite continued headwinds in the domestic economic. However, competition has remained very stiff, with well-established brands enjoying a large portion of the market share in South Africa. I've been told something there. So remember in my Pestel analysis, economic landscape. So what is the economic landscape? Characterized by stiff competition. So what is my risk? So my risk there is, from an economic perspective, I may not be able to penetrate the market because of the current players or the established brands. So it means when I go in and start to provide my insurance products, they may fail to be uptake. Why? Because consumers in South Africa may still prefer the established brands. So can you see how I've linked what I've been told about the South African economy and how it's giving rise to a risk from the company's perspective, to say, given the stiff competition, there's a risk that we may fail to penetrate the market. Why? Consumers will likely prefer the established brands. Happy. And then again, because of this competition, another thing that is going to come through is, because we are new to the market, we may not be knowledgeable about the consumer preferences, which therefore increases the risk that we may fail to penetrate the market. Lack of knowledge of the consumer market. Okay, let's move on. For the first time since 2013, outlooks are stable on all 13 major companies in SA. This follows a period of deteriorating economic conditions and accompanying rating downgrades, reflecting the great sovereign risk caused by rising economic and political risks. The sovereign downgrades have been directly weakening the credit quality of investments of insurers that hold most of their assets in SA. Consequently, their balance sheets are more vulnerable Despite all these pressures, insurers have managed to navigate weak growth and low investment household confidence in South Africa. So, poor political landscape. What risk does this give rise? So, because the increased political risk, it increases uncertainty of operating in the market. And then also we are told that the economy generally has been weakening. So what risk does it give rise to us? So on the pestel, I'm on the economic item. Political, I was looking at the P. What risk does it give me? So I want to go to the paragraph headed political turmoil and weak economic growth, struggling state-owned enterprises have increased headwinds. Weak economic growth, rising unemployment. That's a current economic environment, rising unemployment. So will the consumers be able to take up my products? Ongoing political turmoil, we talked about it. State-owned entities with significant liquidity and governance problems that restrain business, investment, and retail confidence. Then there's another specific item that I really was interested in. This one, paragraph 10 is starting here. This has exacerbated the country risk profile of South Africa, and this is also among the countries with the highest criminal records. So what does this mean? So if you look, PMHL wanted to enter into the South African market to provide motor vehicle insurance. So if South Africa has the highest criminal records, what risk is it bringing into play? From an economic perspective, it means we are going to have a higher underwriting risk, more claims from our insured customers. Why? Because their chances are high that their vehicles are going to be maybe stolen. So I'm now linking the trigger I'm getting in the case study to the nature of the business that PMHL intends to undertake in South Africa. Very much clear. So now I want to go further, having read this information, to my pestel. So I talked a bit around the political, I talked a bit around economic, social, high unemployment rates. How will it impact on our ability to penetrate the market? Low disposable incomes. Technological, if you remember in our case study, we were told that PMHL has not been investing in innovations, etc. So because of that, how are we going to be able to penetrate the SA market, which likely is going to be more technologically advanced than the Zimbabwean market? Again, a risk. Then from a legal perspective, SA is a country with its own laws and regulations. Risk. We may not have knowledge of the regulatory environment, which increases compliance risk. We may fail to comply with all the laws and regulations governing insurance operators in South Africa. Then, maybe environmental, we don't have anything specifically due to the nature of the business that we intend to undertake in South Africa. Then another item that we needed to consider. So from the rest of the case study, you can then also raise risk around how are we going to finance this expansion into South Africa. In the case study, we are told that PMHL has been experiencing foreign currency shortages. So now by going to the SA market, this is a foreign market, definitely we then need foreign currency to fund this expansion. Do we have enough foreign currency reserves to fund this particular expansion strategy? So I'm sure, as you can see from how I've structured my analysis, I've come up with a model that allows me to be able to identify relevant risks. And in this context, it was appropriate to use pestel. But does not mean in all questions which require you to analyze the risks, pestel is the most appropriate. Pestel was appropriate. Why? Because I was worried about a new market that I intend to enter into. Now, from our marking that we did, what were some of the common pitfalls that we noted? Most of us were failing to use info in the scenario. So we're just coming up with these theoretical positions which had no linkage whatsoever to the information, the scenario that we've been told about the South African market. And then also some of us did not understand to say, entering the South African market, what will be PMHL doing? It's going to be targeting the motor vehicle insurance business. So obviously the high crime rates, you should then be able to link how will it affect someone who wants to invest in the motor vehicle insurance business, high claims rates. So the key feedback from this question was, when you are doing your risk analysis, one, did you understand the context within which you are making this risk analysis? We want to enter into a new market. Therefore, what was the best tool to use to be able to do this risk analysis? For this question, the most appropriate tool would have been to use the Pestel analysis. And then for each trigger final that you would have identified, you then need to explain, if you are saying the deteriorating economic conditions, how were they going to negatively impact PMHL when they do expand into the SA market? So these are some of the things that we expected to have included in your answer to question 3 for your test 1. So in conclusion, key learning outcome number 1, make sure you've understood your scenario. Number 2, when you're answering questions, first of all, think of the structure or the thought process you're going to be using to be able to generate adequate questions. And I want to emphasize, in most of your upcoming exams, questions in relation to risk are always going to come through. So make sure you've gone back to your notes on enterprise risk management if you're not yet clear on how risk management works. So thank you very much for taking time to go through this lecture recording. I hope it has been helpful and given you some clarity in terms of what we expected you from this question 3. Thank you.